The definition of victim is a person harmed, injured, or killed as a result of a crime, accident, or other event or action. Canadian statistics say that 95% of child sexual abuse victims know the person who abused them. 60% of all reported child sexual abuse victims 60% of all reported sexual abuse victims are children, and 1 in 5 boys and 1 in 3 girls will be victims of sexual abuse before the age of 18. I'm 1 in 3. My name is Kealin. I'm 11 years old and I was a victim of child sexual abuse. My story began about the age of 4 or 5. It's hard to remember a lot of my younger years. On one side I was trying to be a kid, the other I was a victim. I was too scared to tell anyone, even my mom. I was ashamed to say that something was wrong, that I was being hurt, especially by an adult who I was supposed to be able to trust. I felt like it was my fault that I was being hurt, but also that I wanted to deal with it so I could protect my mom and little sister. So I didn't tell anyone. I felt dirty, like someone might be able to see my pain. Eventually I got very sick. I couldn't eat and it felt like there was something blocking my throat. I couldn't sleep properly because the nights came with the pain, and being so scared that I didn't want to close my eyes. My hair was falling out. I would throw up without anyone knowing why except me. I lost a lot of weight, and I would have to drink meal replacements sometimes 4 times a day because I couldn't swallow real food. And I still didn't have the courage to tell anyone what was happening. The first time my mom took me to the hospital, I was 8 years old. I remember trying to hurt myself because I had so much anger inside of me. I was given an antidepressant, but still too scared to tell anyone what was going on. Eventually, I couldn't concentrate at school. I was sad all of the time, crying and too scared to leave my mom. The threat of being sexually abused was gone by now, but the secret was eating me from the inside out. I finally found the courage to disclose that I had been abused, and the journey to healing began. My mom believed me, and so did the many wonderful people that came into my life. I was so scared of being hunted down by the person who hurt me, but I couldn't turn back. My mom and I promised each other that we would not allow this to break us, and because I found my courage, I wanted other kids and people to know that they were not alone. I wanted people to have something they could hold or touch, something that would join us all together. So I thought of a bracelet, the color of teal, which is the sexual assault awareness color, and my mom, my grandma, and I each chose faith, love, and courage. We had 200 bracelets made, and I've given them all out across Canada and one to Theo, to England and in the United States. If money was donated, I sent it to Be Brave Ranch in Edmonton. But most of all, I wanted people to feel inspired, that if I can find my courage, then they could too. I sent a bracelet to my good friend Glory Meldrum, founder of Little Warriors in Edmonton, Alberta. Glory had a dream of opening the first ever long-term treatment center for kids who have been sexually abused, called the Be Brave Ranch. There are no long-term treatment centers in Canada for the victims, only the offenders. At the time, Glory was still fundraising the money to be able to open up the ranch, so I wanted to do what I could to help. I was thrilled to hear back from Glory. She is another person who shares my story. She's a survivor of sexual abuse too. She told me that I was the first kid to reach out to her, which amazed me because with her being so public, why wouldn't others? I had a lemonade stand and raised $34 for the Be Brave Ranch, and that summer Glory had my mom and I go to Edmonton to meet her and participate in some fundraising efforts. I was interviewed by Global TV Edmonton and did some radio commercials to help bring some awareness from a child's point of view. I'm so proud of Glory and all she has accomplished. At the beginning of September of this year, Glory opened the doors of the Be Brave Ranch and welcomed the first group of kids into the program. Canada should be opening a Be Brave Ranch in every province. Shortly after I turned 9, the anger inside of me was out of control. My heart hurt so badly. I was angry at the world, angry at myself, and very ashamed. My life didn't feel like it was worth anything. I couldn't focus or concentrate, and I cried all the time. I was always worried and sad. It was easier for me to take out my anger on the world than to admit more pain of my abuse, despite working with 2 therapists. As well as being in therapy every week, a special treatment called EMDR and art therapy was recommended to help deal with my terrible anxieties. However, my family could not afford those therapies, so I had to go without. One night I couldn't handle it anymore. I wanted my life to end so that the pain would end. My mom took me to the hospital to get me some help. That night I met a person named Ziggy, who I always will be grateful for. He looked right at me and told me I was and told me to have faith because I wasn't alone and that everything was going to be okay. He must have known that I needed to hear that and be reminded. In the darkest moments, his words have always stuck with me. Shortly after I was transferred by ambulance to Sudbury to a children's mental health hospital, I stayed there for a week and came home to face my story in a new way. Even though I felt it was important for me to help other kids, you can't just magically make the pain of abuse go away. As much as I wanted to forget every minute of being hurt, I couldn't. The effects of sexual abuse can last a whole lifetime. You just learn to handle it better as you move away from it and move on taking back your life. Another person who has always inspired me is Erin Marin, creator of Erin's Law. Erin is from Illinois, and she too is a survivor of child sexual abuse, and like me, promised that she would use her voice to help others. Erin's Law makes sure that there is part of school curriculum in each state that teaches children about sexual abuse, the differences between good touch and bad touch, and what to do if the child is being abused. Erin says that if children know what to do in a fire, in a tornado, or a lockdown, then why don't children know what to do if they are being abused? That is a very good question because I didn't know at first what to do. I was too scared. If I would have known it was okay to tell, that I didn't have to be so scared, then maybe my story would have been different. I connected with Erin through social media, and she told me that I was the first kid to connect with her. I have read each of Erin's books, and Erin inspires me with each state that she testifies in and passes Erin's Law, which is in half of the United States now. Different media people who have interviewed Erin are always interested in how Erin has inspired other kids. Because I was the first kid to connect with Erin, she has asked that I participate in a few of her interviews with People magazine, Glamour magazine, and another major news station that is still working on their story about Erin, so I can't say yet who they are. I am so excited that Erin is coming to Ontario in spring 2015. It is my dream to meet Erin, and I am hoping we can make that happen. Lots of people ask how I know Theo Fleury because I am only a kid. So many people get excited to hear Theo because he is an NHL hockey hero. Truthfully, I know very little about hockey, and the only thing I know about Theo and hockey is that he played for the Calgary Flames. I first met Theo when my mom, my best friend, and I drove to Toronto for the press announcement of the Victor movement. I was excited because Theo and I shared the same story. We are both survivors of sexual abuse, and Theo and I aren't afraid to stand up and help others find the courage to heal. This was the first time I heard Walk with Thousands. I had goosebumps, and I tried hard not to cry. I vowed I would walk with the thousands. I knew that the Victor movement had to come to Muskoka, and that's where it began. I next saw Theo at a fundraising event in Edmonton, Alberta. We have a common friend, Gloria Meldrum, and she has asked me to speak at this event for a few hundred people, and of course Theo was there to lend his support. Along with some other survivor friends, we sang Walk with Thousands with Theo. It was pretty amazing. To top off the night, I danced with Theo to the song My Girl. Not many people can say they danced with Theo Fleury. When people know that I have met the Prime Minister, they often are pretty surprised. Usually only members of Parliament, world leaders, or bystanders at events he attends have that chance. I always had a dream to meet with Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I wanted to share my story with him, telling how important the issue of child sexual abuse in Canada is. Not many people are willing to stand up and tell their story. Survivors often feel ashamed and scared to admit it, so I knew that I needed to tell Prime Minister Harper how many people need him to help victims. I decided to put together a package for Mr. Harper. I called it Project Stephen Harper. I made a video talking directly to Mr. Harper, which you saw in the opening video, because I figured I would never have a chance to meet him in person. I told him that I was a survivor myself, and that I represent thousands of Canadians. We needed his help to get behind projects like the Be Brave Ranch. I also included one of my teal bracelets, an orange courage bracelet, and letters from people who was as passionate about this as I was. The idea of Project Stephen Harper was shared with someone who was friends with Member of Parliament Ed Holder, and she arranged a meeting in London with him for me. I wasn't sure if my package would ever make it to Mr. Harper, but I was hopeful. We traveled to London, Ontario, to meet Ed, and I am so grateful to have met him. Ed's kind spirit makes you feel like you've known him your whole life. Not only did he promise to get Project Stephen Harper to Mr. Harper, but he took an interest in what I was trying to advocate for. Ed went above and beyond what I could have ever dreamed of and arranged a meeting for me to meet Mr. Harper. My dream was coming true. meeting the Prime Minister and telling about what matters to me the most, ending child sexual abuse. My mom and I drove 10 hours in one day for a visit to Parliament Hill with Ed, being recognized by Ed in the House of Commons, and only 10 minutes with Mr. Harper, but it was more than worth it. I was representing thousands of survivors in Canada. Mr. Harper told me that he watched my video. I was thrilled. I presented Mr. Harper with a Victor Walk t-shirt and a doll from the Be Brave Ranch. To this day, I still remember how I felt walking into Mr. Harper's office, in total disbelief, but feeling so proud of myself. Ed will always hold a special place in my heart. He welcomed me into his office, listened to my story, and it always made me feel that my efforts really meant something, even though I was only 9 years old. And I don't even live in his riding, where he is a member of Parliament. He came all the way to Huntsville to help me lead the Victor Walk last May, and he has come tonight to make this dream special. So Ed, thank you for making one of my biggest dreams come true and for sharing these special events with me. I'm so grateful for your friendship. My story is not all pain. After all, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. Of course, I have questioned this reason, wondered, why me? And sometimes I have been very angry at what this reason might be. But so far, as I tell my story more, some kids and even adults have found their courage to tell the story too. They have been able to start their own healing journey. I always remind people that I've met that we aren't alone, even though sometimes it feels like it. I have lost some of my memories, things that kids always remember. My birthdays, Christmas celebrations, family times, and camping trips. I barely remember around the time when my little sister was born because that's when the abuse really started. I have had to use photos to try and find happy memories, but it takes so much longer to replace bad memories with good ones. This was because most of those times were overshadowed by my abuse. For years I hated holidays. I really hated my birthday, and until I turned 10, I could honestly say that it was the first year that I really enjoyed my birthday. For a few years, I actually had to celebrate my birthday on a different day than it was so I could take back my day, but with lots of emotions attached. But through it all, I have gone from being a victim to being a victor. It has taken many years for me to be able to stand up and say this, because the journey is tough. I use the term healing journey a lot, because healing takes time, and it is exactly that, a journey. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my faith, my two amazing therapists, my friends, my family, and everyone who has walked beside me and believed in me on my journey. There are ups and downs, good times and bad, just like everyone has. I still have triggers, and from what my adult friends who are child survivors say, that can happen at times throughout a person's life. We can't change what happened to us, but we can change it for others, and that's what I've chosen to do. The Muskoka Victor movement has turned into a movement that makes me very proud. After I disclosed my abuse, I was determined to make a difference for other kids who suffered, or suffer like I did. I made it my life's mission to advocate for children who have not yet found their voice. The person who abuses a child takes away their time as a child, takes away their voice, takes away their joy. I will always use my voice for those kids, and to take the power away from their abuses, and to take the power away from the abusers. I never imagined that my story would create the most special friendships with so many people who would feel as passionate about other kids as I do. And now Muskoka's kids can feel empowered and supported as they try to find their courage as well. They will be able to get the specific therapies that their family would not be able to afford. And the people who abuse children will know that it is no longer a secret, that people are paying attention to now this very serious issue, this epidemic, and that there are so many people willing to help them. They just need to find their courage to tell someone. We need to let victims know that they can be victors too. Thank you so much for all the volunteers for making tonight the most special evening, and thank you for all coming tonight to hear our message and supporting Muskoka's Victor movement.